Hello everyone. Today's poem is Zheng Feng,将仲子, a Zheng Wind from the Book of Songs. This poem is a little bit popular in these days because this poem describes the subtle feelings between a girl and a boy. They fall in love. Most probably they love each other, but their families are enemies. So this is a quite similar situation like the Romeo and Juliet, right? So the subtle feelings described in the poem is quite tentative and subtle. So people like to enjoy and to explore these subtle feelings. Well, this kind of interpretation is quite not so long per the history of the Book of Songs. Some 2,000 years ago, this poem was not treated as a love poem. It was a reflection to a real history story, a very famous history stories in the Zheng state. So if you are going to learn Chinese in the ancient China, not too ancient, even until the Qing dynasty, some 100 years ago. So you're grown up, you want to learn some Chinese, you want to learn something. Very probably the first text is the story that closely associated with this poem. The title is Zheng伯克段于鄢, a very famous history story. Well, I won't tell too much the significance or the deep down root of the culture of this story, but I will give you a very quick briefing of the story. So the story is about two princes. So normally the elder will ascend the throne to be the new state lord after his father's death. But anyhow, the queen or the mother of the two princes, he preferred the junior one. So when the elder ascend to his position as a state lord, the mother asked his elder son for a big piece of land, a big city for his junior son. And this severely violated the code of conduct, because according to the code of conduct, the state lord will have the biggest city in the state, and all other people, his brothers, his uncles, his grandsons, whatsoever, they will have a piece of land in the state. They will have a city under them, but the city, the land, should be much less than the state lord. So in these cases, the state will be in order because the state lord have the biggest piece of assets as well as the power. The land, the people are the power, are the troops, right? So a senior officer named as Zhong, or sometimes in the ancient days it was so called as Zhong, advised the state lord that this is wrong per the code of conduct. You should change your decision, and thus for the best interest of the whole state, right? But the state lord didn't listen to his senior officer, Jizhong or Zhaizhong. So be careful in this poem, the title, Jiang Zhongzi. So they have the same name. Zhong is their name, and Ji is their surname. The surname represents their land, the name of their land, or either their bloodlines. So in that time, actually we have two characters to represent the two different surnames. The surname from the bloodline, we call it in that time, in ancient time, was so-called as Xing. And the surname comes from the land he have. Normally was so-called as Shi. So sometimes the ancient figures was called by his surname by blood. Sometimes he was called by the surname of his land name. So in this case, in春秋左传, the name was Jizhong, and it's very clearly Ji is the place name. And in this poem, we see a figure with the same name, given name, but with a different surname, Jiang, right? Jiang Zhongzi. Zi means he's a noble. He's a person with a land, with slavery, right? So Jiang Zhongzi means a person with the surname of Jiang and with the given name of Zhong. And Zhong also tell us he's the second son of that family. So I have a wild guess that this Zhongzi, the person who was so-called as Zhongzi, Jiang Zhongzi or Zhaizhong in the春秋左传, they are the same person, and Jiang is the surname from the bloodline, and of course Ji, the surname is from his land. So the state lord didn't listen to the opinion, the advice of Jiang Zhongzi, and he just waited the opportunity when his junior brother rebels, and the decision or the action of the rebellion could be seen by everybody, because at the current time when the Jizhong or Jiang Zhongzi gave the advice, most of the citizens don't know. So if he do something to do some of the damage to his junior brothers, most of the people, the citizens will say, oh, the state lord is not a good guy because he didn't treat his junior brother well, because the brotherhood is an essential value of those days. So he, as a state lord, even as a state lord, he cannot break that social value. And one day, some 20 years later, after he was the state lord, it was recorded in the history book. His junior brother rebels, and he, of course, defeated his junior brother and swept away his junior brother outside of his state. So, in the surface, the state lord do the right thing, but finally everybody realized the state lord is not a good guy. If he want to prevent his junior brother to rebel, he should do something beforehand, before his junior brother rebels, right? But the state lord do nothing about that. He just waited and watched until his junior brother rebels. So, in general, in common sense, this state lord, Zheng Gong, was taken as, at least on these affairs, he was not a good guy. So this poem is a reply in the poetry form from the state lord Zheng Gong to Jizhong, or to Jiang Zhi. They're the same person, right? Let's see. 将仲子兮，无逾我里，无折我树杞。Hey, my dear minister Jiang Zhi, don't cross over my land. Don't break my trees on my land. So this sentence basically is an imitator of the poem in 背 Wind, 古风，勿视我良，勿发我狗. So basically, in the modern language, it's just like keep away from my assets, keep away from my people. So this is the dialogue between two lords, between two capitalists in today's situation, right? Don't touch my money, don't touch my wallet. So it's a serious warning. So it can't be a love poem, even from this first sentence, right? So in a subtle love poem, normally the young girl, neither the young boy, they will never talk about money, about interest, right? Okay, so you should know the first sentence quite clear. Hey, Jiang Zhi, my dear minister, don't cross your finger on my own personal things. What things? The relationship between the state lord and his junior brothers, right? The relationship between princes or among the royal families is also a great interest to the royal state, to a state as well, right? So that's a big interest in those days. So here, the first sentence is quite straightforward as well as severe. Don't touch your dirty finger on my own assets. Don't touch your finger on my own family, the family of a state lord. Okay, the second sentence, 岂敢爱之，畏我父母. Is that to say I adore my junior brother? No, not at all. It's only because I'm afraid or I respect my parents. So we know in the real story, the mother has a great favor over the junior brothers, and the mother dislikes the state lord as well. So it's quite obvious things. So the second sentence actually is an explanation to his dear minister Jiang Zhi. So you gave me some advice, but the first sentence is a finger pointing. Don't say that again. It's my own business. Don't put your dirty fingers on my own business, on my family's. But you said something right. But I won't do that. It's not because I love my junior brother. I dare not, because the junior brother's behavior is a severe violation to the code of conduct, violation to the law. So that's the utmost standard, even for the state lord, for the state lord's family, right? So, per the code of conduct, per the law of the Zheng state, I should do something to my junior brothers, but I won't because I'm afraid, I respect, I listened to my parents, and my mother have a great favor to my junior brothers, right? I won't do anything to violate the opinion or the feeling, to hurt the feelings of my parents. Okay, the third pair of sentence. 仲可怀也，父母之言亦可畏也。仲 refers to the my dear minister Jiang Zhong or Ji Zhong, right? My dear minister Jiang Zhongzi, you can think about that by yourself. But the words from my parents, I had listened to my parents. I'm afraid, or I had to pay a respect to my parents' words. So the third sentence is a further explanation of these conflicts, right? The state lord, the poet, confirms the advice. Your advice is correct, it's positive, it follow the code of conduct, right? But I won't do it, follow your advice, because I have another advice from my parents. I had to respect, I had to follow the advice from my parents. So this shows the deep roots where the conflicts comes from, code of conduct, as well as the words from the parents. So basically, the second and third paragraph is telling the same thing with a little bit variations. So in the second pair of sentence, 无折我树桑，无逾我墙, don't cross my wall, don't break my mulberry trees. And 岂敢爱之，畏我诸兄, because I'm afraid of my brothers, I won't do something to my junior brother, the favorite junior brother. So this tells us that in those days, the state lord is the most powerful man in the state, but the power comes from a lot of aspects. Especially from his big families, including his parents, which was mentioned in the first paragraph. The second comes from all the brothers in this big family, in the state lord's family. All these brothers consist of the major upper level of the state. They are the most important political power in this state. So have a very, very good relationship between all the brothers, or they are all of the good brotherhood is essential for the stability of the state, for the good and harmony environment of the whole state. So if the state lord do something bad to one of his brothers, all the other brothers will be either frightened or worried. So the second paragraph basically tells his dear minister that I won't follow your advice because I have a great concern to all my brothers. I won't want to frighten or to let them worried about the brotherhood among this big family. Okay, the third paragraph. 无逾我园，无折我树檀. Don't cut my sandalwood. So this is all the quite similar things, which is a variation or imitator of the bay wind. Don't touch your finger on my own personal interests or my family's business, right? And 岂敢爱之，为人之多言. So is that to say, I don't follow the code of conduct to punish or to do something to my junior brother? Is that to say I love him? No, of course not, because I'm afraid of the rumors. I'm afraid of the words by the citizens, by the people. From all the three paragraphs, we can see where the power of a state laws come from. Firstly, by the inherit from his parents, from his grandparents, right? By the bloodline. So that's the royal things, right? Even some European countries, they still have this sort of the royal things. It's by blood. The second is by the big family, especially the brothers. And the third, the citizens. So the citizens basically refers the people who live in the city and as well as in the suburb. So those people, they have some political rights to talk to the state lord, to express their political opinions. So basically, from this poem, we can see something about that state lord of that time, of that society. And also, the second thing we can see from this poem is three type of trees mentioned in the three paragraph. In the first paragraph, 起. So here, it's my guess. You cannot see this interpretation anywhere. So in the first paragraph, 起 very likely referring to the praise to the gods. So in the ancient China, the Chinese believe in many gods, and the major god is the god of the heaven and the god of the earth, the mother earth, but still a lot of gods. So first thing first, 树杞 basically refers to those gods, because some gods is local, right? The god of a mountain, the god of a big river is local. The heaven is common, the common god for all the Chinese. And in the second paragraph, 树桑, sang very clearly referring to the ancestors. So in the book of Psalms, whenever you saw this character, sang, in the surface, it always referring to the mulberry trees and sometimes agricultural. But I can guarantee you, in 80% of the chance, it has the metaphor to the ancestors. So that's where the power come from, right? And in the third, 树檀. So the 树檀, tan is something, could be a metaphor to the warehouse, or by the warehouse, it's referring to the wealth, to the assets, right? So basically, this poem is quite simple on the surface, but it's quite interesting, and it's quite a good window for us to look into the real social values in those days, the brotherhood, the family value, as well as where the power comes from. to a state lord. Okay, that's for today.